And notice that he said the spiritual freedom is a freedom based on love for what is good and true. We said before that all freedom is being able to follow love for something, that we have the affection for something and we get pleasure out of it, so we do it. When what we love is what is good and what is true, that's what we want to do. And that wanting to do the things that God wants, that the divine wants, that is spiritual freedom, because then we're going with the grain of existence, and that leads us to all kinds of great things. So what guides us toward, if spiritual freedom gets us into that flow, you want to get there. So what guides us toward spiritual freedom? This is from Swedenborg's Divine Providence 73. He says, spiritual freedom comes from a love for eternal life. The only people who arrive at this love and its pleasure are people who think that evils are sins and therefore do not want to do them, and who at the same time turn towards the Lord. The moment we do this, we are in spiritual freedom, because it is only from an inner or higher freedom that we can stop intending evils because they are sins and therefore not do them. This kind of freedom comes from an inner or higher love. At first, it does not seem like freedom, but it is nevertheless. Later, it does seem that way, and then we act from real freedom in accord with real rationality by thinking and intending and saying and doing what is good and true. Just a note there, he says a love for eternal life. That doesn't necessarily just mean, oh, we're thinking about the afterlife instead of this life. Eternal life is the life of love, because that is what lasts. We can be now building this love of eternal life in loving the things that are true and real, which is love, which is empathy, which is how other people feel, not just how we feel. That is, because that's the reality. You walk into an elevator, everybody else there is having an experience and is just as worthy of not being harmed as you, but you just don't think about it unless you really gain the true perspective. We gain that perspective, and that's where we go. So Swedenborg continues this notion we're going to have one more little excerpt from Divine Providence 73.
This freedom grows stronger as our earthly freedom wanes and becomes subservient. It unites itself with rational freedom and purifies it. We can all arrive at this kind of freedom if we are just willing to think that there is an eternal life, and that the temporary pleasure and bliss of life in time is like a passing shadow, compared to the eternal pleasure and bliss of life in eternity. We can think this way if we want to, because we do have rationality and liberty, and because the Lord, who is the source of these two abilities, constantly gives us the power to do so.
There's more freedom outside of being able to choose good and evil. And let me explain what that means. Here's a little split screen to let you know. So you have this couple, right? Let's pretend these are the same people. They're actually different stock photos. But you see on the right, that is like they have the freedom to choose good or evil. You know, they can either say kind things to their partner or they can say harsh things to their partner, depending on whatever they want to do in the moment. What does that lead to? You know, but if we get past that into, hey, I trust you, you trust me, then there's this different kind of freedom. There's a freedom to open up, to get more intimate, to get more involved. There's a whole freedom there if you're not constantly worried about, oh, are they going to exercise their negative freedom? Also, if you're thinking about doing things, you can think, oh, I'm more free if I can choose to like something or not like something. But once you do love the purpose that you're serving, then you have freedom within it. You have this freedom to move and grow in it rather than constantly being in this struggle between good and bad, in this struggle between earthly freedom and spiritual freedom. So how do we get ourselves out of that struggle? And what do we do to get freed from freedom? Well, that's the last section we're going to look at today. So let's check it out. Part 5. Yeah, I exercise my freedom to talk past the end of the section there. What is the dynamic here, this whole freedom thing? Well, let's think about it like the mind, body, and the spirit. That there are these different levels to us. Let's equate those with the spiritual, rational, earthly freedom. So which of these is going to be in charge? You know, the spiritual freedom is in charge when heavenly love flowing into our highest level makes the decisions in our lives. Rational freedom is in charge when our limited ability to think and debate makes the decisions. Earthly freedom is in charge when bodily cravings and lower impulses make the decisions. So it's not about which, they all exist and they're always going to exist, but which one of them is calling the shots, which one of them has free reign. If you think about angels, Swedenborg describes that they have this kind of freedom, but it's not the freedom like, hey, I can just do anything that I want. It's this freedom of, I don't have to worry about the burden of evil. I don't have to constantly, do I want to cheat this person or not? Do I think these negative thoughts about them? It's being freed from those. And it's freed from these impulses to do evil, and that actually has so much more life to it, so much more potential to grow and move, and it's on another level. There's no draw for angels to want to go back to the way it was before. Oh, if I could only do evil. It's like wanting to crawl back into a teeny tiny cage after you've been allowed to roam the hillsides. You would never want to do it.